Friends, have you ever had one of those moments where life throws you a curveball so unexpected that you literally freeze? Well, let me tell you about the day a multi-millionaire Arab sheikh showed up at my middle-class suburban home in Ohio to ask for my daughter's hand in marriage. Yeah, you read that right. And what happened next? Well, it changed everything I thought I knew about being a father. It was a Saturday afternoon in late September. I was in the garage trying to fix my lawnmower when my wife Sarah came running out, her eyes wide as saucers. "Mike, there's a limousine parked in front of our house," she whispered urgently, "and a man in traditional Arab clothing is walking up our driveway with 2 bodyguards." I wiped the grease off my hands and walked to the front of the garage just in time to see exactly what she'd described. A sleek black limousine sat at the curb, and approaching our modest 3-bedroom house was a man in his mid-40s, wearing an immaculate white thobe and a red checkered keffiyeh. 2 serious-looking men in dark suits flanked him. "Mr. Michael Thompson?" the man asked in perfect English with a British accent as he reached me. "That's me," I said, completely confused. "Can I help you?" "My name is Sheikh Khalid Al-Mansour," he said, extending his hand. "I apologize for arriving unannounced, but I've come to speak with you about a matter of great importance. It concerns your daughter, Emily." My heart stopped. Emily was 26, working as an international business consultant. She traveled the world for her job, but she'd never mentioned anything about this. "Is she okay? Did something happen?" I asked immediately, that parental instinct kicking in. "Oh no, nothing of the sort," he assured me quickly. "Your daughter is perfectly well. In fact, that is precisely why I am here. May we speak inside?" I looked at Sarah, who nodded nervously. We led Sheikh Khalid into our living room. The bodyguards remained outside. Our modest furniture suddenly seemed even more humble with this clearly wealthy man sitting on our 20-year-old sofa. Sheikh Khalid sat with perfect posture, his hands folded in his lap. Sarah brought tea, her hands shaking slightly as she poured. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," he began. "I met your daughter 6 months ago at a business conference in Dubai. She was representing her consulting firm, and I was there regarding my family's investment portfolio." I nodded, remembering Emily mentioning that trip. "Over these past months we have encountered each other at several international events. We have had many conversations about business, culture, philosophy, life. Your daughter is an extraordinary woman, intelligent, principled, compassionate and strong-willed." He paused, taking a sip of tea. "I have come to care for her deeply," he continued, "and I believe she shares these feelings. However, in my culture, it would be disrespectful to proceed without first speaking to her father. So I have flown here from Abu Dhabi to ask you formally for Emily's hand in marriage." Sarah gasped. I just sat there, trying to process what I'd just heard. "I understand this may seem sudden to you," Sheikh Khalid continued, "but I want to assure you that I am a man of honor. I am 44 years old. I have never been married. I have no children. My intentions toward your daughter are entirely honorable. She would want for nothing. I can provide her with—" "Wait," I interrupted, holding up my hand. "Just wait a second." My mind was racing. This man, who was clearly wealthy beyond anything I could imagine, had flown halfway around the world to ask my permission to marry my daughter. It felt like something out of a movie. I'll be honest with you, my first instinct was pride. Here was this powerful, wealthy man, sitting in my living room, asking me for permission, treating me with respect, following tradition. Part of me wanted to puff out my chest and feel important. But then I remembered something Emily had told me 3 years ago. "Sheikh Khalid," I said slowly, "before I respond I need to tell you a story." He nodded, looking somewhat surprised but attentive. 3 years ago, Emily was dating a guy named Brett. Nice kid, came from a good family, had a solid job. One day he called me and asked if he could take me out for drinks because he wanted to ask me something important. Sarah looked at me, knowing exactly where this story was going. "We went to this sports bar downtown," I continued. "Brett was nervous, sweating, the whole 9 yards. Finally, he tells me he wants to propose to Emily, and he's asking for my blessing." I paused, remembering that conversation clearly. And you know what I did? I felt honored, I felt respected. I shook his hand, told him yes, welcomed him to the family, the whole traditional father thing. I felt like I'd done my job as a dad. Sheikh Khalid smiled slightly, as if to say, "Exactly, you understand." "But here's the thing," I continued. "I didn't tell Emily about that conversation. Brett proposed 2 weeks later at some fancy restaurant. She said yes. They were engaged for 3 months, planning the wedding. Everything seemed perfect. I took a deep breath. Then one night, Brett made a comment at a family dinner. Something like, well, I had to get the old man's permission first, you know how it is. He thought it was funny, charming even. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering. Emily's face went white. She asked him what he meant, and when he told her about our conversation, about asking my blessing, she took off the ring right there at the dinner table. Sheikh Khalid's expression had changed from confident to concerned. Emily broke up with Brett that night, I continued. And then she came over here the next morning. I'll never forget it. She sat right where you're sitting now, and she cried. Not because she was heartbroken about Brett, but because she was disappointed in me. I felt my throat tighten at the memory. She told me, Dad, you raised me to be independent. You and Mom put me through college. You supported my career choices. You taught me to stand on my own 2 feet. And then you let a man ask your permission to marry me, like I'm property to be transferred from one owner to another. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. I tried to defend myself. I admitted. I said it was about respect, about tradition, about doing things the right way. And you know what Emily said? I looked directly at Sheikh Khalid. She said, Dad, the right way is for him to ask me, not you. I'm not your possession. I'm your daughter, but I'm also my own person. My life, my choice, my decision. The only permission that matters is mine. The room was silent, except for the ticking of our old grandfather clock. That was the day I realized I'd been getting fatherhood wrong. I said, I thought my job was to protect her, to be a gatekeeper, to decide who was worthy of her. But my real job was to raise her to make those decisions herself. Sheikh Khalid set down his teacup carefully. Mr. Thompson, I understand what you're saying, but nothing. I interrupted gently. Look, I can see you're a good man. You flew all this way. You're being respectful. You clearly care about Emily. I appreciate that. I really do. I leaned forward. But here's the thing, Sheikh Khalid, you're asking the wrong person. Emily is 26 years old. She has a master's degree in international business. She's traveled to 40 countries. She speaks 3 languages. She owns her own condo. She makes her own money. She doesn't need my permission to marry anyone. In my culture, he began. I understand, I said, and I respect that different cultures have different traditions. But Emily was raised in this culture, in this country with these values. And one of those values is that women are not property to be given away by their fathers. I saw him stiffen slightly. I'm not trying to offend you, I continued. I'm trying to be honest. If you truly respect Emily, if you truly see her as your equal, then you should be having this conversation with her, not with me. Sarah spoke up for the first time. Sheikh Khalid, can I ask you something? Does Emily know you're here? He hesitated. No, I wanted to follow proper protocol first. That's the problem, Sarah said softly. Emily doesn't need protocol. She needs a partner who sees her as an equal, who values her voice above tradition, who asks her what she wants instead of assuming. Sheikh Khalid sat back, and I could see he was genuinely processing what we were saying. He wasn't angry or defensive. He looked thoughtful. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, he said finally, I have been raised my entire life with certain expectations about how these things are done. My father arranged his marriage to my mother. My brother's marriages were arranged. I thought by coming here, by asking you first, I was showing respect, and in your world you probably are, I acknowledged. But you're not asking to marry someone from your world. You're asking to marry my daughter, who lives in this world, and in this world, she gets to decide. He nodded slowly. You are right. I have been thinking about what I want, what my family expects, what tradition demands. I have not been thinking about what Emily wants or what she believes. Here's what I'll tell you, I said. If Emily wants to marry you, if you two have talked about it, and she's made that choice freely, then you have my support and my blessing. Not because you need it for the marriage to happen, but because that's what family does. We support each other's choices. I stood up and walked over to the window. But if you haven't had that conversation with her yet, if you're here trying to secure some kind of approval before you even know how she feels, then you're starting this whole thing on the wrong foot. Sheikh Khalid stood as well. What would you advise me to do? Talk to Emily, I said simply. Tell her how you feel. Ask her how she feels. Ask her what she wants. And most importantly, listen to her answer. Really listen. Don't try to convince her. Don't make promises about wealth or comfort or anything else. Just have an honest conversation between two equal adults. He extended his hand to me. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. You have given me much to think about. As he walked toward the door, he turned back. You have raised a remarkable daughter. I see now that is not by accident. After he left, Sarah and I sat in silence for a moment. Then she said, "Should we call Emily?" "Nope," I said. "This is her life. She'll tell us when she's ready." 2 weeks later, Emily called. She said Sheikh Khalid had flown back to the States and they'd had a long conversation. She told him she wasn't ready for marriage yet, that she wanted to focus on her career, and that while she cared about him, she needed more time to figure out what she really wanted. She said he listened, really listened, and he respected her decision. "Thanks, Dad," she said on the phone. "Khalid told me he came to see you, and he told me what you said. It meant everything to me that you stood up for my autonomy." "That's my job, honey," I said. "Not to control your life, but to support you living it." Friends, I want to end by connecting with all of you. I know many of you are fathers, some of you are mothers, some of you are mothers, some of you are daughters or sons navigating these same issues. And I want to tell you something important. Tradition is not always wisdom, and respect is not always control. I grew up believing that being a good father meant being protective, being a gatekeeper, being the authority figure who approved or disapproved of my daughter's choices. But my daughter taught me something better. She taught me that being a good father means raising someone who doesn't need my permission to live their life. So if you're a father and someone comes asking for your daughter's hand, ask yourself, are they asking the right person? And more importantly, have you raised your daughter to make her own choices? And if you're a daughter dealing with traditions that don't honor your autonomy, know this: you have every right to set boundaries, to demand respect, to insist that people see you as a full human being with agency over your own life. The greatest gift I ever gave my daughter wasn't walking her down the aisle or giving my blessing to some man. It was stepping back and trusting her to write her own story. And let me tell you, she's writing a damn good one.